Before we dive into this episode, I just want to let you know, if you want to get access to episodes before anybody else, head on over to patreon.com/concerts that made us. And as a bonus, you'll get access to videos of some of the episodes and a host of other benefits. We've also teamed up with Band Builder Academy to offer you 10% off their membership. Details of both can be found in the show notes below.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, Concerts That Made Us. Interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts, concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
This is Walker Tex. You're listening to Concerts That Made Us.
I saw that dark gray state. Another 10-4 figure, I can clean my slate. I keep a close watch from the wrong try. And don't strike me down, don't cut me up, 'cause I fucked up, and that's my love, the Glasgow Gray. 'Cause heroin and whiskey never chased my pain away.
Walker Tex, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
First off, I have to say, it's one of the coolest names I've had appear on the podcast now. I have to give you props for that one.
It's a name that has sat right with me some weeks and has haunted my dreams other weeks. But yeah, like I'm glad you like it. I kind of came up with a name before I came up with what style I was kind of going for music wise. But I think there's a lot of obvious connotations that come with a name like Walker Tex, I guess. So I'll give you the history behind it. So there's the obvious Walker Texas Ranger, which we all know and love, I should hope. And then there's a couple of older musicians, definitely in the country space, like Tex Ritter was one. These guys were all yodelers and crooner kind of style in the country scene. So it kind of made sense. The more I looked into it, and of course, my middle name is actually Walker, and so there was a lot of signs. The universe was pointing towards it, you know.
Right, have to be that one. So it's lucky you went into the country genre now, because I couldn't imagine like a black metal Walker Tex or anything, you know.
I remember back to my metal days, and we had some, I can't even remember the names. We had some silly names going back then. I was like, I'm not even carrying them forward. No, we're better than that now.
Oh, I could imagine. So you released Glasgow Gray on the 4th of September. What can you tell us about it?
So yeah, Glasgow Gray was, I was having a conversation with a good buddy of mine, a fellow musician from here in Dublin called Keenan Flannery, and he's a brilliant songwriter, and I take a lot of inspiration from him. But I was heading to Edinburgh, where I had lived, and we were discussing like it's kind of, I don't really like going back to Scotland, and I'm from Glasgow originally, but he said use that, like try and build a story and put that into your songwriting. So I decided to kind of how would I describe the story of what I was running from, where I was going, and Glasgow seemed to be the obvious place to write about. My experience of like living there was like I lived in a few states there, and moving on from Glasgow, I found myself in Northern Ireland of all places. So I spent a lot of time in around Belfast, and I went to school there as well. So I put a lot of that into my writing. But to me, Glasgow is a place where you've got a lot of trouble with addiction. You know, it's known for certain things. It's known for its golden brown, its heroin, and it's known for its violence. I think it was a murder capital of Europe, not a title you kind of want for your city at any stage.
No, I have to admit, when I hear the word Glasgow, the first thing I think of is a Glasgow smile.
Yeah, exactly.
As bad as that is.
There's all these negatives. I mean, I think the biggest to describe the mentality of people in Glasgow is like they'll stab you, but they'll be polite enough to give you directions to the hospital. You know? So I figured I would write about how I personally found Glasgow, and I think I'd done a post on Instagram recently where I do explain like, look, I am in no way slating Glasgow with this song. I'm sure the place is lovely. This is just my personal experience of coming from there and the things I saw. And then as the song progresses, certainly the things I saw in the early 90s and growing up in Belfast at a very volatile time. So I figured I'd put that in. And for me, it was about escaping. It was about this journey of kind of moving away and that reluctance to look back, but looking forward and growing. So hopefully that comes across in the song. But that's where I kind of went with it in terms of looking inwards and trying to put it on paper.
Yeah, geez, you kind of went from bad to worse, though, didn't you? Glasgow to to Northern Ireland, like.
Again, we should say for any listeners, Belfast is a great place for tourists. I don't want to get in any bother.
It is now, yeah.
But yeah, like growing up there in the 90s, it's I don't talk about it too much. But I lived in the city, and although most of the troubles in terms of what the media were showing had appeared to be behind, it was certainly weird. I mean, you'd be positions where you're on a train and the train stops, and it's like there's a suspicious package on the line. We're going to wait here a while. And I'm like, nobody seems to be bothered by this, you know. And it just that was the way of life. Like I remember, like people checking under their cars when they were going to work in the mornings, and like just mad stuff that is, looking back, completely insane, but was completely a part of everyday life. And yeah, I just figured I'll write about that. And then obviously the religious divide. So there's this one line in Glasgow Gray where I watched religion split its separate ways, and that was my take on Northern Ireland. It's one of those places, volatile, where religions unfortunately kind of split it down the middle for whatever reasons. And I didn't want to get too far into it. I have this great belief in life that you should never talk politics or religion, you know. But but I think I just opened the window a little bit and be like, look, I know it's there and I'll sing about it here, but we're not gonna dive into it too much in the song. So, but yeah, I would agree, bad to worse.
Yeah. With a background like that, then you must never run out of inspiration. Typically, how would you approach songwriting then?
So it's changed over the years. Like I suppose it's sort of a cliche. I never saw myself as a songwriter, and it just kind of happened organically. And again, leaning on the folks around me who were further on in their music careers, and had been doing it longer. They always kind of pushed and like, get your storytelling down. There's stories to be told here, and definitely, like you've said, there's a lot of inspiration to be drawn, and certainly for the darker kind of style, if I go down that road, I approach it, kind of think about the subject matter, or depending on what's on my mind that day. And I know a lot of musicians say, like, you could be sitting on a bus, you could be just going about your day, and something will hit you, and you'll get this line, and you'll write it down, and you'll chase it. So I tend to approach it where the lyrics kind of come first, and then I look at a few chord progressions that I might have had in my back pocket, and I try and shoehorn it. And every musician's got a different process, but that's how I've been doing it to date. Kind of lyrics first, and then the music is second. And then I work with a good friend of mine who produces all the music, Malleus and Stapes, and we kind of sit down together and think what sounds are really going to go well, and we look at what sounds going to actually like convey the narrative within your lyrics as well, you know. So that's my approach. Right or wrong, it's not for me to decide if I'm going for sticking the rules. But I'm constantly, I hear from friends and musicians on their process as well, and we're always, I'll try it, yeah. And it always seems to you just this is the way I always end up back with. So
Hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
well, this is it. I'm open to any help I can get as well out there, folks. So feel free to reach out, take my hand, and tell me how it should be done.
And you know, when it comes to making new music, then what part do you most enjoy? What do you really look forward to diving into?
I think it's that first time where I sit down and just kind of hum out the melody. And then you get a feel for, oh, that lyric's going to go well with these chords. And the first time you've ran through it all together, I think that's my favorite moment, because that's the purest moment. You know, that's where it's been truly done in that moment. Anything after that, you're trying to emulate and recreate that first inception of the song. That's the easiest way I can describe it. So I think that's the whole process. I enjoy every aspect of it from beginning to end, from the designs of artwork to the choosing instruments and playing with every instrument to see if it works. It's always a blast. Even working with other people on certain songs is always fun. You always learn something. I think for me, the purest moment and favorite is that first, oh, that sounds good, we're going to progress this.
You made me think of something there now. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you're approaching a song like that, how do you know when it's done? How do you know when it's time to walk away and leave it?
You don't. I've had many debate. And I hear, I've seen a lot of musicians' interviews as well, so I know I'm not the only one. It seems to be a trend in the industry where you never really know, but you have that point where you're like, I have to walk away and just let it go now and let it get released. So there's been times where we've spent a day on a song and we've been like, that sounds really good, and then we'll get all the work done on it together, and then a couple of weeks will go by and you might have learned a new way to throw your voice or a new chord or something, like, oh, that would have fitted in just nice. I have to rely on someone else to tell me not to go back and then open up the can of worms all over again. So again, it's a tough one. You never truly know. You just hope. And I know I used to work in sales, and I remember a lot of previous bosses telling me hope is not a strategy in sales. And I think, well, hope is a strategy because you can only hope for the best. And so I'm gonna go my way.
Oh man. And if someone was to look at your career as it stands now from start to finish, go through your music, is there any specific themes or messages that pop up that you like to convey?
I think I'm very flattered that you call it a career because it's felt far from it. I think it's a tough one to kind of put on. When I started out, like I've been playing music all my days. Like younger days, it was all the punk rock and metal was what started, and I always had this, like weirdly enough, I always had this strange infatuation with country music as well, and not even the cool country music, like of course you've got your Johnny Cash's in there, but I was like Conway Twitty and all them kind of, you know what I mean? So I'm not like you can listen to Slayer and then you stick on the Conway album at a house party, and people start turning their heads. But what is going on here? Yeah, it's to define it as a career, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Right. Right. And I suppose we'll dive into some early influences then to see where you come from. We'll start off with a kind of tough one now. Can you remember your earliest musical memory?
I can, yeah. So in the very, very early 90s, an aunt of mine she had three boys on her side of the family, and they were all going through their grunge phase. And early 90s, grunge has really taken off. The earliest song I kind of remember hearing was Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden. I remember hearing that. So that was one of the earliest ones. The second earliest was Bryan Adams, Everything I Do It For You. And there's footage out there that will surface someday of me playing that song with a tennis racket and trying to sing as a very, very young child. Those are my earliest two that I can remember. And from there, it just kind of sparked. My mom is very, very open musically. So there was always music around the house, and it would range from country to new romantic stuff that came out of the UK to the American side of things as well. There was just this kind of very open-minded approach to music when I was growing up, which I loved.
At that stage then, what sparked the passion for music in you and made you want to become a musician?
Again, it was seeing the guitars on the walls. When I remember hearing the Soundgarden one up at my aunt's house, and she bought the boys all matching kind of Stratocasters. Was it the black and white Stratocasters were big at the time? And I remember one of them letting me kind of hold it. And of course, I'm tiny, like a couple of years old, trying to balance a Stratocaster. I think it kind of always stuck with me. And then the fact that we were always listening to music, and there was always kind of any live music event that anyone was going to, just seeing the feelings I got from coming back from a concert. And then as I grew older, kind of getting to see my first kind of live concert, someone playing a guitar at the house, it just gave me this kind of feeling of like that I'd like to try and make that sort of connection with people and play music. So think it was always there from an early age, and it didn't really, like most, I didn't really get my first instrument until I was hitting the rebellious teenage years. From there, it sparked, and for years it was just kind of, is this a hobby? Is it not? And it was only in the last couple of years I really decided I'm gonna really push for this again. I'd done it when I was younger, but I think it was one of those, everybody's doing it. It's what you do, and then I'd not given it up for a while, but I'd kind of taken a back seat and then sparked it up again, and certainly in the last few years.
And something dying to know now is, how does a rock, punk, metal guy turn into a country musician?
There's only so much like Slipknot, Lamb of God, and Metallica you can listen to of a day. You need something to bring you down of an evening, and there's nothing better than a bit of country music. And I think the darker side of country music always attracted me, from the stories of the artists, like on and off the stage. It was just these guys are just outlaws through and through, and I always have this, like, I was a kind of always wanted to be a cowboy when I was very young, you know. So I was kind of always going to lean towards those harmonica sounds and the old pedal steels and the sounds of the Wild West as we know them through film and television, I guess.
Right, I like it. And, you know, not to be offensive now, but I've heard people say that it's easier to be a country musician than a rock musician or a pop musician. You know, that it's not that hard to come up with lyrics or to play the guitar to a country tune. What are your thoughts on it?
So I would agree to an extent, right? And that's where it gets down to, okay, so I've had some songs that are very basic, and you're looking at the style of Woody Guthrie and those types of guys. So you're three chords and the truth, I think, is the big thing, the big conversation that comes out of country music. There's more to it, where if you're going to write a song and you're only going to use two chords, you really need to think about how the other instruments are going to come into that and how your lyrics are going to incorporate. So most of the stuff I sing, like, I know there's a lot of country musicians out there, and certainly in the pop country realm, where it's, do you sing about beer, trucks, small towns, and kissing your girl down by the cornfields? You know, you've got those tick boxes that have to be added into the lyrics to make it in the country pop realm. Whereas the outlaw stuff is more singing from a place of darkness more than anything. You're singing about real kind of life issues. So I like I say, I agree to an extent, but I think going back to the point of, if you're only going to use a couple of chords, take not a country song, but let's take Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac. There's only two chords in that song, but you would never know it because there's so much else going on. There's such a big music scape, I guess, is maybe the closest phrase I can get to, that goes on in the background of that song that just builds it up so much bigger. But when you strip everything away, you're left with those two chords. So it depends how involved in the process you get into. Like, I mean, I don't necessarily think I'd ever dive into the likes of the pop country stuff, because it is very much these are your four chords, you're going to play them to death, and you're going to change your melody, but you're also going to have to add in these keywords, and it's manufactured as pop normally is. I think it's getting different now there's a few people floating around where I've seen them break into that popular realm, but they're still doing it kind of very differently. So yeah, like I'd agree, it can be easier to write one, but it depends. Are you writing for the popular approval, or are you writing from the heart, you know?
It's a good way to look at it. It's funny that you should verge on that or at the end, all right, because I was going to ask, what do you think of guys like Morgan Wallen and everything that are kind of bringing country back into the forefront and into the popular realm?
They definitely, I mean, first off, there's no doubt that these folks do have talent. I mean, we're talking about great singers, and I guess millions and millions of people can't all be wrong. It's so, and I'll be honest, some of their stuff I will listen to, and others I'll categorically be that that's not for me. I do like the idea that they're bringing that kind of popularity back to country music, because it does pave the way and open the door to to other more unknown acts and those smaller kind of the more outlaw and the darker stuff as well. It's that kind of segue in. So I think it has its positive place. I think I think I was reading we're at a stage now where there is it the top 4 in the Billboard right now are all country songs. Like and this was like over the summer as well. There was this kind of trend towards that popular country guys getting in there. So I think it opens that door, I think, to other subgenres, and that's a whole other world you can get lost in with music. So like look at new metal was popularized back in the early 2000s. Like it was getting into the charts. So I think there's always room for these people kind of kicking down that door and then us sneaking in at the back. I think that's the way I see it, and the hope is that we do get there. And success is different for everyone. Some people are fighting for that major stardom, and others just want to earn a living and make a connection with people along the way. Some strictly just want to make a connection and have another and just live that quiet life. So it depends what you're after.
True. And Ireland specifically then, what's your thoughts on the current state of the music industry as someone trying to break into the industry?
See, I have the unenviable position of trying to break in within Ireland and not being from Ireland. So I have a very different hill to climb. I think when I first started reaching out to radio stations in the country space, I found that it was very strict. They wanted to kind of tell you that it has to be in this kind of waltz kind of time. It has to be within this certain BPM. You have to be able to line dance to it. There's a lot of rules I found with the Irish country scene if you're trying to break into it. And there again, everybody has their talent in there. I think when it came to reaching out to radio stations, it was very few and far between. And then again, you are doing country, and I think certainly what I find here in Dublin is there's a very openness to music. Ireland's a great country to be doing music because it's full of poets and lyricists, similar to Scotland, and that's why I like kind of living here in Ireland. But I do find there's a lot of gatekeepers, a lot of egos with younger bands as well, and maybe that's just me showing my age. But I do find that ego is there. I think it's about making relationships as well. Once you meet someone in person and say you've been trying to get on the radio show or trying to book a gig somewhere, when you meet them in person, it's a whole different dynamic. When you just send an email and your track, I think it comes across like you're waiting on that handout. There's definitely work to be made, Like I changed my perception in the earlier days of trying to make connections through email and not getting anywhere. I was starting to get frustrated, and then I was like, you know what, I need to get off my ass. I need to go out there and meet these people and show them like I'm fairly serious about what I'm trying to do here. And since doing that, it's kind of been good. And the biggest revelation came in the summer when I got to play a nice show in a popular spot here in Dublin City. So it was a long time coming, but yeah, my opinion has changed. It went from negative to nobody likes me to it's gonna be all right. Like there's a way of doing it, and it's about meeting people, I think, and showing them who you are and telling your story. You have to put yourself out there.
Exactly. And as well, it's harder to say no to someone face to face,
There's always that as well. I mean, I stand at 6 foot and wear a cowboy hat and have tattoos all over me. I think I'm in the camp of it's going to be tough to tell this guy to get F off. And being a persistent ex-salesman, I mean...
Yeah. And, it's concerts that made us, so I have to ask you, as a concert goer, what concerts have made you?
So the first concert I ever went to, first off, was Slipknot up in Belfast way back when.
Right.
That was back in my new metal days, and it just blew me away. I'd never seen something so aggressive kind of come out. So that really was eye-opening, and you're seeing a large group of people on stage as well. you know, how they rolled like back in the day. I know they still wear their masks. Back in the day, it was like they were talking the boiler suit and mask, and that was pretty much it. And they could just captivate. They could hold. They could get a crowd bouncing. They could get a crowd screaming. It was that connection. Seeing someone be able to not command a room, but be able to connect with that many people at the same time. So that was my first like eye-opening experience. And then I started, Metallica done a run. I don't know if you remember down here in around '06. They done like every year they were kind of coming back for a couple of years there. I went to their shows, and again, it was just phenomenal to see and hear, and every aspect of it, from the guys that come out and test the sound to Metallica and the lads coming out and playing that first riff. They come out to Ecstasy of Gold as well, and just
man.
It gets you, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a complete experience, like.
It is. There's certain, like, a lot of people say, like, they talk about gigs, and then I talk about shows, because there's a gig where you're just playing, and then there's a show where you're putting on a show and you're giving every piece of yourself into every track and every guitar hook you have. I think there's something very, very passionate. It's something very, although it's very heavy, aggressive music, there's a vulnerability in getting up there and pouring your heart out, no matter the genre of music. So to me, those would be the ones, I think, that string Metallica ones. Of course, I got to see a bunch of other artists. When they came through town, they brought like the best with them. So it was always a good show.
Yeah, those were the days. If only to do it again.
Yeah, those were the days. I think between ticket prices and dwindling habits and stuff, it's kind of sad to see your heroes go through that. Like the biggest, like looking at where Motley Crue are now and losing kind of Mick Mars, like walking away from the equation and stuff, and you start to see that glimpse of the business side of music industry, and I think that's where you kind of think, well, what am I actually doing this for here? Am I doing it for to get that far, or am I trying to find that happy medium? So
yeah, exactly. It'd be definitely the happy medium anyway.
Big time. If I can support me and mine and stay just under the radar enough, but then I'll keep going.
Yeah, just listen to my music. Don't make me famous. In other words.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my tagline. Please listen, but don't listen too much.
Oh, and you know, I'm looking forward to hearing about this now. For any listeners that haven't caught one of your shows, I know you mentioned one that happened in Dublin over the summer. We'll hear about that in a bit. But what can they expect?
So I always throw in a good cover. I normally start off with a cover, and I'll let you into the secret of why I started that way. It's to get the voice going. So like, I know if I'm playing my own song, it would break my heart if I started and my voice wasn't up to par. But if I'm playing someone else's and I mess it up, I can recover from that a bit better. Maybe that's
a good one, actually. Yeah,
but I can recover from that a lot better. So I'll start out with a nice little cover. The show we done recently started out with Kate McCannon by Coulter Wall, which is a beautiful murder ballad favorite of mine. But I tend to dress my show up as an emotional kind of roller coaster, but in a fun way. I want to take everyone in that room on a journey. I want to take them through the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to make them happy. I want to make them feel sadness. I want to make every human emotion kind of come out on the night. So I try and arrange the set list in such a way where I can do that. If I'm playing with buddies of mine and I know they've got kind of happier tunes, I'll end on a sad note, on the basis that my buddy, like I played with Copper and Keenan, and Copper was coming up after me, and he's Clean Cut Cowboy is his nickname. So I knew his songs were going to be a lot more upbeat. So I think I ended on that downer, but I made him promise the lads in the room there and then everyone that came along that Copper will bring you up. So don't dwell on this sadness too long. I promise you it'll pass. But it depends as well. And you gauge it from the reaction of the audience, whether you're going to change out a song from your set and what the next kind of twist in that roller coaster is going to be.
Now we can dive into that show. Tell us all about it. How exactly? It was in Fibber McGee's, wasn't it?
It was in Whelan's.
Oh, Whelan's, yes.
Yeah. So me, Keenan and Copper had been dressing, playing around with this idea. Keenan sits more on the folk side of country. And like I said, Copper's very much clean cut. Your George Joneses, your Merle Haggards. I say clean cut, but all these guys were never clean cut. Sound wise, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had this idea that we wanted to put on a country show, and we had certainly been trying with different bookers to get on different places around the town. We're like, you know what, a tour manager would do it themselves. Like, how do they do it? And we kind of looked at it. So we took the approach of booking out the room, and we played Little Whelan's, by the way. So it's not the big main bells and whistlers, but still notable for Dublin. So we booked the room, and we decided, look, let's make this an experience. So we got in some little nice cards to put on the tables, and we dressed up the stage a little bit, and really started getting to thinking how we'll do a show and what way we do it. That was at its core, and then from there it really just kind of took off, and we actually ended up selling it out, which was totally surprising. I'm not saying we're bad musicians. Give out wrong, but you're never expecting to sell out, and certainly at the stage I'm operating, like anything over 15, 20 people showing up to a show at this stage is amazing. So it was really, again, when we talk about that turning point in terms of the Irish music industry, for me, I think that was it. Seeing the effort we put into promoting it. Keenan's manager, Nads, put a lot of effort into helping us out and setting up all the things behind the scenes. That we had folks on the night that were passing by and just popped in to see if they'd seen the poster outside, thought they'd pop in. We had American tourists there. We had such a good range of family, friends, and just people who had seen and took a quick listen on the streaming platforms and thought they would get a ticket and come in. So it was a great experience. We had everyone singing, there was dancing. Like we surprised people with a raffle halfway through the show. We done very old school techniques in there, but we wanted it to be different as well. But it was a really, really good experience.
I'd imagine it's one of the most perfect gigs, though, when you've organized it yourself with your friends, and then you're such good friends, you're playing together. Was there any stage where you all jumped up and did a medley or anything?
We did. So at the end of the show, we came down off the little stage and stood in the middle of the room, and we sang a Fraulein, which is an old kind of folk song. Again, it's Coulter Wall and Tyler Childers had covered it, and a lot of artists have done it over the years. So the three of us, we'd agreed I think it was like the week before, we had one session, and we're like, let's see if we can play this, because we have to play it next week and go out with a finish. And I wasn't doing well in playing it. Right. Compared to the other two, I hadn't played with other musicians for quite some time. I was very much isolated on my own and kind of adding bits in here and there. So we got through it, and it worked well. The crowd was singing along as well. But that was a really nice experience. And I think you mentioned there, like, our friendship. I think if it had been just another Walker Tex supporting and that sort of thing, it's hard to get that camaraderie on the night. It's a gamble. Are you going to click with the artist you're supporting if you've never met them before? Whereas with us, we had that history, we had that friendship and that connection. I think that's what made it all the more special to me, was getting to play that show with some really good friends who accepted me into their hearts and minds and their little piece of the Irish music scene.
Yeah. And for any listeners outside of Ireland, Little Whelan's is a major stepping stone on the roadmap of venues in Ireland. So now that you've conquered that, are you going to do another one there? Are you looking to somewhere bigger?
We are looking at replicating the show, changing it ever so slightly. So I'd say, like, set lists will change. We are planning, and I mean, when I say planning, I'm talking out of turn because it's so early. Keenan's just back from a brief US tour. So the plan, the idea is we're going to aim for sometime in December. Now, whether that happens, and I know this is being recorded, like I fully expect someone to throw it back at me, but we're in the very early stages of planning. We do want to do it again, and we are hoping to do one by the end of the year. If not, forgive us. We will get our asses in check and let everyone know when we are.
You know what? You guys have to bring that on the road, like, and hit major towns around Ireland. It's a small country, I know, but there's, it would go down very well.
We have that. We had that notion when we played it, and it is something we're looking into as well. So I think you wouldn't be far off the mark now if we were able to do that, and do a short string around Ireland. Like you say, Ireland, it's not the biggest place, so it would be handy enough to do. And because we're not big bands, and we're kind of all just us and our guitars and take us as we are. So it would be very much doable. So I'd love to get to that stage, and I think it's definitely in its early stages of inception now.
Good to hear. And I always say we hear about the good times, we have to hear about the bad times. Is there a gig you would say was the worst experience, and how did you deal with it?
There's one I remember from years and years ago. Now I was a teenager, so it's so far back in the history books, but it stuck with me. So I was in I guess an acoustic emo style band way back in the early 2000s, and me and my best friend at the time we're just playing, and we're recording on just a dictaphone almost back then, like real rustic old school. And he managed to get us this gig, and I was like, okay, that's great. And it was in like a coffee house. It was that kind of style, and there was another few artists playing, but it was a big deal to us at the time. We were around like 17. So it was our first kind of time playing in front of people. So the nerves are high and stuff. I was a very nervous youngster. I've since shaken off that nervousness and anxiety. But I remember a couple of days before he told me that he was going to Florida with a family. I was like, what about the gig? Because you're going to have to play it yourself, man. We can't back out.
Oh, man.
We're not backing out. You're backing out and leaving me high and dry, dude. He's sending me to the wolves. Like, I don't even I wasn't the singer. It was the biggest thing. Like, I didn't sing back then. I just played guitar and that was it. So I knew what I was doing. I didn't even know if I could sing and play guitar. My mind just I wasn't a multitasker back then. I didn't have that skill. So I just I had to dive into it anyway. So I went down to the gig, and I think I ended up only playing covers. I was that nervous, so I think I played the weirdest covers as well. We were like an emo pop punk style thing, and a few of our friends had heard some of the stuff we were attempting to do, and they were excited, and they were very disappointed on the night when they showed up, and I couldn't play any of our own material. Like I Love Cats by The Cure. I butchered it, man. I really, really butchered it. It was almost unreal. It was like I put effort into trying to butcher it. It was that bad. I've done another couple. I can't even remember. I think it was like a Taken Back Sunday song I tried, and like I said, I was not a singer, so it was trying to play and sing at the same time was just bad. I remember coming off, and I was like, I just went and took my seat and just shut up and didn't even look sideways at anyone. Like my friends were kind of like, "Look, you done it. That's all that matters." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's fine, it's fine." That was the worst experience, but I guess I got it out of my system early.
Yeah. Yeah. You done one better than me. You actually reminded me of when I was a teenager, and I had joined a band with a friend of mine, and he booked a show. We'd had 2 practices. He booked a show in like the town hall in the town I was from, and a week before the gig gave me a list of like 9 songs. It was a short set, 9 songs to learn. And the night before, so the gig was on the Saturday night, the Friday night he calls to my house and says, yeah, I've scrapped that, man. Here's 9 new songs that you have to learn within like 20 hours. And these songs were like, I'd never even attempted to play them before. So you had bigger balls than me, because I literally turned off my phone and just ghosted them that day and didn't even go near the gig.
I wish I had done that all those years ago.
Yeah.
That is a big challenge, though, having to learn. God, like even if someone came to me and said, these 3 songs, I need you to learn them by Friday, like that's still a challenge to me. Like if it's not ones I know, I'm gonna struggle, and I like to spend a couple of weeks getting comfortable with songs.
Yeah.
Like, gotta do them any justice. Gee, yeah, some horror stories from a lot of musicians out there. The early days, like remember like Battle of the Bands and stuff, where we hadn't we got a slot on a Battle of the Bands, but we had to play an original, and then it was like, well, it's for it's like a metal Battle of the Bands. I'm like, we're acoustic, man. How are we doing this? So we had to go and enlist a friend who we knew was amazing at guitar. So we were around at his house the night before, and he's like, what if we just use this riff? And Matt starts singing, and then we get this little bit going. And I'm there, like, I learned the riff. We got up on stage, and we never occurred to us that we didn't have an ending to that song. So at some point, I had to just stop playing and turn to the other guitarist and the drummer and be like, yeah, just cut it, man. Like, we did not think about this at all.
Man. Always important to put them endings in.
Exactly. Yeah, it's important to know when your song's going to end when you're playing with other musicians. Just a slight minor detail you need to have in there.
Yeah, exactly. So, your shows nowadays, then, before you go on stage, how do you psych yourself up? And then afterwards, how do you wind down?
So to psych myself up beforehand, so I'm still one of those, like, I still get those nerves, but I know from doing it so long that I'm going to do it anyway, and I'll fit into it. So for me, the point where I shake off the nerves, like I'll go and do a vocal warm-up, and I'll practice maybe the set. If I can and have time, I'll run through what the set's potentially going to be. And then when I'm at the venue, where I really begin to calm down is after sound check, because I try and, like, sound check, I'll run through a couple of songs and I get the feel for the room and what sort of sound it's going to be. And I think for me, that's been my ritual going forward. It's not 100% foolproof, because not every venue is going to allow you to do a sound check. Sometimes you're thrown to the flames and that's it. So I've been lucky enough up till now where I've had a sound check. That one day where it doesn't happen, maybe we should have another conversation and see how that one went.
Right. Oh man.
Winding down after a show is a whole other beast. Like I'm not a big drinker, so even, like, I'll obviously celebrate after a show. So it's kind of it's mainly me, Copper, Keenan, and Naz, and the rest of us here. Just kind of, that was an awesome show, and we kind of talk about our highlights, and just we enjoy the moment. I'm a firm believer in enjoying the moment and celebrating every success, no matter how small or how large it may be. So we'll have a little conversation about it, and some highs last longer than others, But it's certainly it's a lot harder to wind down after a night like that. I think that after Whelan's, we were so just amazed that many people came and the reaction we got. I think I was still chatting to Copper at like 4 a.m. in my flat here in Dublin, and like that was crazy. We never expected that, and we're so grateful. I think we stuck around after and met a lot of people who'd come in for the show, and we got to hear their stories, where they're from and where they traveled from, and it was really nice. It was a pure kind of connection that we'd made, and that was the most important thing to us.
Geez, that gig, just the more and more you say about it, I think it's going to be hard to beat or hard to
This
replicate,
is
you know?
it. No, it's one of those. Every now and again, you get that one that's like, I think that was the best. That's the peak. We recorded the show as well, so we definitely thought it was such a memorable event because all three of us got together. Like Copper lives down in Wexford, and Keenan's constantly all over the place with his music. So for the three of us to be somewhere and actually do something like that was such a good experience for all of us. But definitely there's going to be the video of the night is going to be coming out on all our social medias, I think, again towards the end of the year, once I get the time to edit and put it together. So we'll be able to kind of show why it meant so much to us and why it was so special. There's a lot of screaming yeehaws from the crowd. Just those things that really make it. Like I think there's one clip I put up on Instagram, and this guy done the loudest yell that I was halfway through a whistle solo, which is still cool to do whistle solos, by the way. There's not enough of them in music, I must put but this guy was so loud I had to stop halfway through, and I was like so tempted to be like, I'm just gonna stop my set. That guy needs to be up here doing this. Like I'm not worthy anymore.
Oh God. And moving on then, how do you balance your personal life with the demands of being an artist?
I'm a firm believer in trying to seek balance in life. Achieving it is a whole other dilemma. I think I try, like I'll allocate certain time to the music is such a big beast because you've got the business side, you've got the creation side, the songwriting side, the actual recording side, and there's so many different pieces to that one puzzle. So for me, it's like time allocation is very important, but at the same time, if I've got an idea that's really keeping me awake at night, I have to write it down and try and progress it. It is hard, but for me, it's just cutting up that time. With winter coming up, I normally allocate like on a Thursday I'm going to record. On a Friday I'm going to do my emails and reach out to radios and playlists and different bits, and then Saturday and Sunday and Monday are my days off from music. Usually I'll try and kind of keep it calm or keep it very light. I'll still do little bits on Instagram and maybe go for a hike or something. But I find the balance is it's okay right now, and it depends on whether you're got gigs coming up, whether you've got a song that's taken too long to get to the end of production. It just depends. Some days are better than others. Some weeks are better than others. But it's definitely a case of being strict and being an adult, unfortunately. My calendar is always full, so I got to a point where I'm like, I'm gonna have to keep myself in check and make sure I'm still enjoying life. And like it's great being a musician, but if you're not enjoying life, you've nothing to write about, you know.
That's a very good point.
You have to be experiencing things as you go.
And how do you engage with your fans then, and what role do they play in your journey?
It's integral to that success category that I have, which is connecting with people. I'm very open. I chat to a lot of different creative folks who enjoy the music. I'll always engage, and I know a lot of photographers, a lot of filmmakers, and some people that just really just dig music in general. I'll always reach out, and I'm very open. Like if you have a track that you've listened to and you like, and it's in my kind of taste, like send it on. Let's chat about it. If I have new music coming out, like I'm always afraid to spam people, so I'm always kind of I try and avoid just hey, it's like those spammy DMs or emails that you get. Like I don't send newsletters out or anything like that. I don't know, I haven't got there yet. And I think it's as you're building a fan base, it's one of those things that will make it easier, but there's going to be a point where you lose that personal connection with folks. So for me right now is like a prime kind of stage to be at. I still have the benefit of being able to kind of talk to a lot of people that enjoy the music, and I really appreciate and like that aspect of it.
Right. And one of the most obvious things about your music is you're a great guy for collaborations. Walk us through some of the highlights of the collabs that you've done.
The biggest one was a collab that turned into a partnership, and that was with Malleus Stapes, who's a brilliant musician, brilliant creative mind, brilliant producer, videographer based out in Georgia in the US. We met through Instagram. We had a conversation, and he told me he was wanting to dip into producing. And we done a cover way back when, and it went well, and we started just working together, and that's developed into the sound, the Walker Tex sound that you get. As much as it's me, it's every part Malleus in the background as well, behind the scenes, doing a lot of work. He helps. We co-write together. We decide what instruments we're putting in. We work on chord progressions together. We're very, very close in that regard. The recent collaboration was on Glasgow Gray, where I'd always wanted to have a proper pedal steel. I have a lap steel in the home studio. I can't play it. So like I can play a note here and there, but I can't play it to the level I wanted to. And I came across Noah Faulkner on Instagram and TikTok, and I was loving this old school sound that the kid had, and I reached out, and he was very excited to work. And I was like, "This is great." So I sent him on a couple of demo versions of Glasgow Gray that we had, and I think within a couple of days, he sent me back 3 different versions of pedal steel he had in mind for the song, and each one of them just blew us away, and it was just so nice to have that and seeing how much he connected. Because I'm very open with a song as well. Like if I reach out to collaborate with someone, I want them to put their name on it. I want them to put their mark on it, their style. I wouldn't be one to be kind of, you're going to play this and that's it. Like I don't ever want it that way. So having Noah brought in was a brilliant experience. Malleus knew a girl called Julia, who is an amazing violin player, and she was kind enough to lend her hand in the song as well. And like the more we looked at it and listened to what Noah and Julia were bringing to the table, we were just, this is such a beautiful collaboration. Of another collaboration at the moment with a band called Down River that we're still finessing. We hope to have that brought out very soon. And again, it's always been such a positive experience working with other people, and I love the fact that you can build on a basic idea, and other people can bring their creative element to just really blow the lid off it and make it something you never expected it to be. I think a lot of us had that mentality of like, go where the song leads you. And everyone I've worked with to date's been doing that with any collaboration. I work with Keenan and Copper fairly regularly. And again, we constantly mess around with different instruments. We constantly bring our own personal style into the songs, and we collaborate on each other's stuff fairly often. We're really comfortable. So it's just that, again, going back to that connection is the core of it, you know.
Does it ever get to the stage then when you're like, I actually enjoy collaborating so much that I'd prefer to be in a band than be solo?
I think for me, it's something I've toyed with. Like I'm going to be bringing on a guitarist fairly soon, and we're going to start working on stuff for the winter. I think I'm certainly already in the process of doing that, because a lot of the people I've collaborated with have their own thing going on, or likes of Noah and Julia, they're over there in the States. It's not feasible to kind of be booking shows and taking it on the road. The more people you have, the higher your cost is when you try and take it on a tour. So I think at this stage, it's just a nice happy medium. I bring Mo on, like she's a metal guitarist, and she really liked what myself and Malleus were doing. So I think I'm definitely in that stage of building where I will need I'll need a drummer, I'll need a pedal steel player, I'll need someone there with harmonica. And I have these grand notions. Whether it materializes and grows to that or can be put to that level is another story. But I do feel it's getting to that stage, and personally I have a lot of learning to do in playing with other people. Like I'm terrible at keeping time. So when it
Right.
comes to drums, like I like really bad for a musician at this stage, and where I'm trying to get to, I'm really bad at it. So I think it's important to have that chemistry, and that's something you have to build with another player as well. So it comes down to that balance of time and what you're hoping to achieve, I guess.
Mm. Kind of a nice segue as well. How would you like to evolve as an artist? What would Walker Tex be like in, say, 5 years' time?
I think in 5 years, wishful thinking, I would love to know when a track is finished. So I think that, that would be, if I could get to that stage and have that secret sauce in my pocket, I think that would be amazing. But I think in 5 years' time, we're certainly going to see a transition to a much more honed sound. Like these first couple of years have been really about me flexing the songwriting muscle and taking a lot of inspiration from those around me and learning a lot. And I'll always be continuously learning in life. So I think in 5 years' time, I'd like to be very comfortable with my vocal ability, very comfortable in my songwriting ability, and just gain more confidence than I have at the moment, I guess. But definitely have that. I know what sound I can go for. And then I know I'm comfortable deviating and kind of bending genre a bit as well,
Hmm. I like it. I like it. And before we dive into the last few questions, then, future plans that are set in stone. Is there anything for the rest of the year that you can share with us, or?
So in terms of the rest of the year, I am working on, so I'm finishing up what we were calling Walker Tex and the Wild West tour. And it was the kind of concept of an album of taking people on this journey through the sounds of the Wild West and kind of the sounds that are coming out of the Walker Tex kind of name. So that's going to be coming by the end of the year. I'm also working on another EP, which is much more rustic, much more stripped back, where it's only going to be those acoustic sounds, because there's some Rhodes organs in, there's some like big sort of pedal steel swell, some distorted guitars, and some of the stuff I've put out to date. By the end of winter, for the newest EP I'm working on, I want that to just be very much a very stripped back. We're talking like wooden cabin, just the guitar and a stomp and a clap, that rustic sound. So that's what's definitely coming down the line. I have the first 3 tracks pretty much nailed down on what I'm going to do for that. And we're literally, I just got a couple of kind of rough versions back from what me and Malleus are kind of shaping the first one up to be this morning. And it's sounding on point to where I want it to be. So that'll be coming. There will hopefully be a few shows, but we said set in stone, right? So they're not set in stone, unfortunately. But I think the 2 EPs are definitely set in stone. There is an announcement coming, potentially October and November, but I can't. I can only keep you in suspense, I'm afraid.
Right, it'll have to do so.
Here for now.
Two EPs. You really like to keep yourself busy, don't you?
This is because it took me so long to get the first one done. So don't give me any credit there. It just took me so long to get one done and start getting the train rolling. And in the background, I've been dipping in and out, and then, as always, writing. And it's just the other ones I had written, I had these ideas come all at once. And when I demoed them out, I was like, they don't suit the first EP, but there's certainly enough there to show that transition and really take people on a journey, which is what I want to do throughout this. As much as it's my journey, I want this to be anyone who listens, I want them to be on that journey too,
I gotcha. Well, I'll personally be looking forward to seeing what they're like anyway. And we'll dive into the last couple. So these are a couple of odd random ones, but I'm intrigued to see your answers. If you could see any performer from history in concert for one night only, who would it be?
Oh, that is so tough. That is so tough. I think I would have to go with I'd have to go with Nirvana. I'd have to go with Kurt Cobain being up there.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that would be it for me. The unplugged, like New York style one he done. Yeah, it would be that kind of vibe.
That'd be pretty cool, all right. And if you had to spend 24 hours locked in a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Any musician from history. See, if I have to spend 24 hours, I don't want it to be one of the ones who was like rattling on the pills and, like I want it to be a fairly sane
Yeah.
line, or someone at the latter stages of the career. Like 24 hours with a musician. I would have to go for the likes of a Willie Nelson or Johnny Cash, I think. I would find it hard to narrow the two down.
Mm.
The reason being is they had, like, I know Willie Nelson's still around, but Johnny Cash had been around so long, and both of them came from a crooner side of country and then developed into outlaws and then progressed into just amazing songwriters, storytellers, and artists. So it'd be one of those. And I think if it was really stuck, I'd probably go for Willie Nelson for he's always got some fun tricks in that bag of his.
they're the two of them, though, they're the type of people that you could literally sit there for 24 hours, not open your mouth once, and just listen. Like,
yeah, that's what I mean. The history is there, and that's why I think I would choose either of them, because they've lived through the changes in country music, the changes in the world in general. Like, these guys had Johnny Cash is gone, but they had lived through so much. So I think it would definitely be an interesting experience. There'd be a lot of learning there as well, and it's always interesting to hear other musicians' approach to just life in general, hear their philosophies, and go down that route with it.
Definitely. And the final one. So, what song would appear on the soundtrack to your life?
Well, again, that is another tough one. Like, just narrowing it down to one song. Oh my. Let's see. I'd probably. I always had such a soft spot for "Alone and Forsaken" by Hank Williams. I think it was, I know it's a very kind of downer to kind of go on, but I think it's, for me, the emotion in that song, the hauntingness of it, because it was recorded so early in kind of musical history. And it's one of those ones I remember as well, hearing it and hearing that creepy emotion in it that just sparked me to kind of use it. There's a lot of dark elements there. He touches on heartache. He touches on kind of desolate feelings. And, we've all been teenagers and went through hardship and stuff. And I just feel, listening to that, it gives a lot of memories to me and certainly shaped the way I write. I just think it'd be a nice, and to me, it's a kind of a bittersweet song, So I think that's why I choose it. Yeah, maybe I'm overthinking it, but it certainly wouldn't be anything happy. I can guarantee you
that. Right.
I'll wait for the movie. You can decide.
Yeah. Talk about ending on a high note, huh?
I know. I'm very sorry. I told you, emotional roller coaster. I hope the next guest is a happier one.
Listen, Walker, I feel like this one has been a very long time coming now, and it did not disappoint. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a million.
I'm really glad you got me on, and I look forward to this one being out there. Thanks so much for having me.
I've been walking to get lost, passing trees and tiny towns. I've seen every trimmed backyard, every white picket fence. I took a walk to the edge of my state line to see what I could find. Turns out that life over there is mine, the same as mine. Every dog has a bark, every mailman's named Hank. I've met every Karen, every Tom, and every Dick. Banks knocking on their door. Daddies go and lose their jobs, so they hit the liquor store. Every dog has a bar, every mailman's named Steve. I've met every Karen, every Tom, and every Dick. To my home and I draw my curtains shut. Summer may have kept me warm, but the winter keeps me chill. Black-eyed wives and forgotten child, they scream upon the floor. Every dog has a bark, every mailman's named Hank. I've met every Karen, every Tom, and every Dick.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're interested in signing up to Band Builder Academy, use the link in the show notes below and enter the code CONCERTS and you'll receive 10% off. So, until next time, keep rocking. Hey, what are you guys still doing here? The show's over. It's over. You can go home. Go on. We'll see you next time. We'll be here. Bye.